The end of the NFL regular season is approaching, as is the 2024 NFL Draft. And in this video, there are two franchise offensive tackles that are available for teams at the top: Penn State's Olu Fashanu and Notre Dame's Joe Alt. The question is, which one is better? Tankathon has Olu Fashanu, DraftWire has Joe Alt, CBS has Olu Fashanu, NFL Draft Buzz has Joe Alt. The list goes on. I think it's my turn to throw my take into the fire. Allow me to settle this debate. Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt? I have 10 traits that I'm going to discuss today. The first 8 of them are worth 1 point for each player, and those are on the left side of your screen. Then, the broad categories of pass blocking and run blocking are worth 2 points, and those will be after these first 8 traits. Trust me, this comes down to the wire. Let's get started. Let me start by saying both of these guys have ridiculous frames, which explains some of their traits explained later on in this video. Olu Fashanu is 6'6", 320 pounds with elite length, while Joe Alt is 6'8", 315 pounds, also with elite length. In my opinion, the more appealing frame belongs to Fashanu, being that he's more stout and compact to the ground. But when you mix in play style and how each tackle plays in terms of pad level, Alt actually plays lower than Fashanu, which kinda scraps that appealing aspect. It's a tight race for sure, but I'm still going to go with the more appealing guy for frame. Fashanu takes an early 1-0 lead. I had to split technique into 2 categories, so let's begin with the hand technique. I thought this was overall strong in both prospects, but obviously I can only choose one. Let's begin with the current loser. In the run game, Alt's technique is phenomenal. He's super quick off the line and immediately runs his hands into the pads, using his good play strength to ensure the blocker gets nowhere close to the rusher. His hand technique in the run allows for good bend and flexibility to drag defenders with him. Especially on inside zone runs, Alt was able to form a gap himself through the flexibility showcased. Now, I have my first negative with Alt when it comes to his technique in the pass game. His monster frame and length don't help the fact that he plays too far from the defender when blocking in pass pro. Because he plays so far, his play strength cannot be utilized and the pocket closes too quickly, too close for comfort as most say. This concerns me for his NFL translation, as an unpoised quarterback will leave the pocket unnecessarily even if Alt is a good finisher. We saw this a lot with Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner in 2022. This leads me into Fashanu, who I think generally has fantastic hand technique all around. In the run, he explodes quickly off the line into the pads, and holy smokes, can nobody get past him. I'll get into the footwork in the next section, but no doubt in my mind, this guy can perfectly place hands in the run. In the pass, he's also dominating. I do think he sometimes hits his man too early, allowing for them to set the edge and make efficient stunts, but once again, he explodes super quickly into the pads and locks down the rusher. I think it's fairly obvious who gets the point for this one. Fashanu now jumps out to a 2-0 lead. Moving on to footwork now, I think this is a neutral point for both prospects, not particularly a positive, so let's dive in. Beginning with Alt, his footwork is good most of the time. He has inconsistencies in this aspect, but when we look at the good portions of it, he's a fantastic finisher and recovery blocker because of his quick feet. He may not set his feet quickly in pass pro, but once he's near the end of his block, he's able to find a rhythm and keep consistent blocking the rest of the way. Beyond that, he's able to explode because of these feet, which comes from his tight end background that I'll discuss here in a couple sections. The inconsistencies are definitely there though. His feet are sometimes too quick where he slightly loses balance and gives the rusher the advantage from there on. His footwork in the pass pre-contact is still fantastic though. As for Fashanu, his footwork is also pretty inconsistent. I think he does a great job with his footwork in the run game, both exploding and keeping consistent quickness in his feet to do the job. In the pass, after contact he does the same thing. That's what I love about that footwork, and it makes me want to give this point to him, but I just can't. As I said earlier, he sometimes decides to push the rusher early in the pass, allowing for the rusher to take over. Mixing this in with the fact that he's not a great recovery blocker and has a tendency to hold when the rusher wins, this absolutely cannot continue in the NFL. He's also worse than Alt laterally, which shows in his inability to consistently block inside stunts. For those reasons, Alt gets his first point of the video. It's now 2-1 Olu Fashanu. Moving on to play strength. Now, both play strength and athleticism were close between these two guys, close enough where a couple bad clips could sway my answer. Let's start with Alt again. As expected with his 6'8", 315-pound frame, this man is going to be strong. He's got great knockback ability with his hands, and he just explodes with his power once his hands are on the pads. I will say that he is slightly inconsistent in this play strength when in pass protection. On some plays, he is knocking the defender backwards and nearly putting him on the ground. On other plays, he's allowing the rusher to drive him backwards and disrupt the pocket. There's obviously a middle ground, but we don't see it enough for him to be labeled a consistent power guy in pass protection. This is where Fashanu shines. He hits that middle ground so much that it's so hard to get around him when he's consistent in his technique. On so many blocks in both the run game and the pass game, they remain exactly where they collide, and Fashanu does not let anything get by him. I think his play strength shows most in the run, as once you collide with him, there's no getting the rusher unless he runs right past you. Fashanu plays more compact than Alt does, which allows the rusher to make plays, but the power is undoubtedly a 10 out of 10. This gives Fashanu his third point, and he continues his reign by a score of 3-1, but not for long. Here's another close result, as both of these players are freak athletes for their size. But let's start with the current winner in Fashanu. I watched his film first, and you notice his athleticism right away. The amount of times that Penn State moved Fashanu around and got him sliding over to block interior linemen and upfield to block linebackers. He worked very well at this, and his blocking efficiency showed overall. Until you get over to the sliding blocks. I was not a fan of these. He was athletic enough to slide over, but once he got to the blocker, he did not use enough power to make a good block. He lost too many sliding reps, and I noticed that other Penn State linemen, including the interior guys, were better at east to west blocking. I did really enjoy watching him block upfield, but the sliding blocks ruined his athleticism score a bit. Joe Alt was better at these sliding blocks. He was more efficient getting off, making it to the blocker, and using his power. This is when I fell in love with his speed. As I mentioned before, Alt is a former tight end who turned offensive tackle late in his high school career. And while he's put on nearly 100 pounds since then, his athleticism translated really well. You can still see flashes of that tight end speed when he blocks upfield, and I absolutely loved watching Alt's athletic profile shine. As a result, Alt closes the gap by winning the athleticism section, and now Fashanu holds a 3-2 lead. These next three sections are going to be a breeze, as I almost gave them half a point. I still decided to give the winner a full point, but let's just get into durability here, which I think is an underrated trait, especially in a left tackle prospect, as if you lose your franchise blindside blocker, that could make or break a season. Both players have the durability to not bring any injury concerns, so it came down to who's been hurt and who hasn't. Fashanu has, Alt hasn't. It's an unfortunate situation for Fashanu since he's been in college for 4 years, but they've played the same amount, so I cannot give any exceptions. Alt wins the durability section and ties this versus matchup at 3-all. Now we have production, which is a large winner solely because of how good one of these guys was. Let's start with Fashanu. According to PFF, Fashanu allowed 7 pressures, 6 hurries, and 0 sacks in 2022, along with 10 pressures, 10 hurries, and 0 sacks in 2023, with pass block grades of 84.7 and 88.4 respectively. In the run, there's no real statistic to show, but PFF gave him a 59.4 grade in 2022 and a 70.5 grade in 2023. Now on to Alt. In 2022, he allowed 8 pressures, 6 hurries, and 0 sacks, and in 2023, he allowed 5 pressures, 2 hurries, and 1 sack. These seasons got him grades of 81.7 and 92.2 respectively. As for the run, he had a 91 flat grade in 2022 and an 85.8 in 2023. Yeah, this is an obvious winner. Joe Alt takes his 3rd straight category and now takes the lead, being up 4-3 over Fashanu. Now let's talk about the miscellaneous category, or for better words, who brings more extra factors not mentioned in this video. Fashanu's extra positives are that he transitions really well between blockers and can block both edge rushers and interior linemen. And he's got a very high ceiling, higher than Joe Alt in my opinion. And Alt does have less positives than Fashanu in my official scouting report, but he also is great at transitioning between blockers and can block both kinds of linemen. And this truly showed in his performance against the elite 2022 Clemson defensive line. Now, Alt has less overall negatives than Fashanu, and I mentioned them all in this video up to this point. Fashanu, not so much. His pad level is concerningly high. He does not have anything going for him in terms of recovery blocks. He has the tendency to hold too much. You'll hear them all at the end of this video. Because of all these miscellaneous negatives, Alt takes his 4th straight point and takes a 5-3 lead over Fashanu. Alright, onto the 2-point categories, which also won't take too long since we've covered a lot. Disclaimer, I am only factoring NFL translation into these categories, not college success or production. Solely a category to determine who is the better pass blocker for the NFL and who is the better run blocker for the NFL. Beginning with pass blocking, I think that both of these guys are going to be elite level pass blockers in the league, which is why they are both scouted so high. Fashanu's inconsistent footwork may turn people away, and Alt's less compact playstyle may also turn people away. And I want to focus on Alt's hand technique. As I previously mentioned, Alt allows for the pocket to collapse too concerningly easy, even if it does not result in a pressure. This takes away his ability to be drafted to almost every team, as teams with low pocket presence signal callers, quarterbacks generally scared of pressure, even younger inexperienced quarterbacks. Those teams will not want to take a chance on Alt. And while Fashanu might bring more concerning translation for pressure amounts, this is much easier to fix. So while Alt's pass blocking production was better in college, I'm still taking Fashanu for this category. These 2 points now tie everything up at 5, and it all comes down to run blocking. If you, the viewer, have scouted these guys before, I think it's clear who the better run blocker is. But I also think Fashanu is overhated as a run blocker. Sure, his compact nature allows for defenders to reach over and make a play if they're close enough to the rusher, but his play strength doesn't even let the defender move past the line of scrimmage. It works so well, and I enjoyed watching it on tape. Alt's run blocking takes the play strength at slightly worse levels and combines it with his great hand technique in the run to exert great run blocking altogether. If runners try to run past him, his technique doesn't even let the defender have a chance on most plays. There's no doubt that he's a top tier run blocker, and combining with his great pass block production, he's going to be a stud, which is why he takes the run blocking category and takes this competition altogether. Joe Alt breaks the tie in the last category, coming up to take the 7-5 win over Olu Fashanu. So yes, Joe Alt takes this competition 7-5. Fashanu may be the better pass blocker in my opinion, but Joe Alt dominated the run blocking category given that he's one of the best run blocking prospects we've seen at blindside blocker in recent memory. So let's take a look at my official scouting reports, beginning with the winner, Joe Alt. His positives are: great big frame at 6'8", 315. Moves extremely well for his size. Explosive off the line in the run. Elite play strength in the run game. NFL teams can work to get him upfield. Lengthy blocker. Good blocking transitions. He can block anyone. Held his own against an elite 2022 Clemson D-line. And his very minimal negatives are: not a fan of his hand technique in pass pro, allows pocket to collapse too quick, which brings translation concerns, and overall play strength is currently a work in progress. My final grade for him is a 77, a first round talent with an A grade. Moving on to Olu Fashanu, his positives also start with his great frame at 6'6", 320 pounds, extremely strong with elite play strength, athletic blocker with very quick feet, combines power with great hand technique, good length, utilized well in the pass, lots of good moving and upfield blocks on tape, good at transitioning between rushers, can block both edge rushers and interior linemen, and there's still room for growth. The negatives show more than Alt, much more than Alt. Pad levels concerningly high, struggles to set the edge against athletic rushers, inefficient when blocking inside stunts, inconsistent at recovering from the lost rep. Some games showed too much holding, and he could use more power on inside moving blocks. My final grade for Fashanu is also a 77, which is a first round talent with an A grade, but the tiebreaker between the two prospects go to Joe Alt. In your opinion, who's the better offensive tackle prospect? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. I have a lot of scouting reports coming out in the next couple of months, so if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. Once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.